third annual Unmanned Ground System Challenge. So in Group A, we're mainly focusing on reconnaissance in the battlefields. Just now, we followed the participating vehicles in the referee vehicles. But later on, the referee vehicle informed us that in order to make sure that the unmanned vehicles have the best performance in the challenge, they had done some extreme approaches. So for these cars, so that means the unmanned vehicles might perform beyond expectation, but also that has also led to higher risks. So risks do exist, and here we are giving you some close-up shots of these vehicles. This is a comprehensive unmanned vehicle for mines. For minefields. And what is this? It seems that it has a big forceps, tongs in front of it for grasping. And this is a crawler track. This is a mine diffusing unmanned vehicle. We have an opening ceremony for this challenge. That's why all the vehicles are shown here, and there are a lot of spaces, as you can see. That's because we need some places for the warm-up and test before these vehicles actually begin the contest. So from today to the 20th of September, we're going to see some individual events competition and some comprehensive team contests. Different from previous annual contests, this year's contest also features air-ground items, air-ground events instead of just on the ground. We also have a lot of bionic robots participating in the challenge in the battlefield. This kind of mountainous facilities for diffusing minefields, etc. And before this broadcast, we invited a specialist in charge of technologies in this challenge so that we will interview him. But now we are in the challenge, so let us not bother the contestants. Okay. Mr. Tao, say hi to our viewers. You can call me Tao Yi. I'm from the technical group. Yeah, we have walked around, but still we're not very familiar with the technologies. So can we actually go to the challenge venue, the competition venue? Well, actually, it's confidential. So we suggest that you first visit the equipment exhibition area. Can you tell us a bit about this exhibition? On the right-hand side, you can see the highly mobilized unmanned vehicles. Actually, we have been very careful because there are a lot of high precision technologies here in the military sector. Some of the facilities are open to the public, but some are not. So before I met with Mr. Tao, I didn't dare to venture into a lot of the fields. Well, as you can see, there are some new features of these facilities, different from the traditional ones. And we're collaborating with the Chinese Academy of Sciences to develop many of these facilities. So you can see this. Well, does it really resemble the feet? Yeah, so it's like bionic, imitating human bodies. It's a very complex structure, combining this crawler and other devices. It can adapt to different ground conditions, and it can perform a turn, overcoming different obstacles. And yesterday, we visited the venue for Group A. We found there were a lot of obstacles, and that means this year the competition is more difficult, right? Yes. So in the previous competitions, some simple obstacles can already be overcome. In this year, Group A focuses more on real ground situations, and which are very difficult and challenging. And you just mentioned a very difficult obstacle like satellite interference. How can we adapt to that? So in Group A, we have the unmanned vehicles. They are not remotely controlled in the backstage. They can actually control themselves, and they can sense the direction. They are like a warrior, and they can see what's before them, and they can decide in which direction they want to go in. So it's not like they're operated by people. They actually can have their own judgments and decisions. Yes, it's highly intelligent. So after the satellite signal is interfered, these vehicles will not be affected, right? Yes, because it has different channels for judgment. It can identify the route to know whether this is the right path to go in. So here, it's a highly mobilized unmanned vehicle. It doesn't have a crawler, but it has this structure, as we can see. This arm is like the human leg. But if it wants to go fast, it needs to have the wheel. So that's why we have combined this arm with the wheel. So this enables the vehicle to go forward, right? And looking in that direction, these are the vehicles preparing to enter the challenge, Group A vehicles. They have already warmed up. And this is a vehicle of the Beijing Technology University. And it will enter the Group A challenge very shortly. Okay. Surrounding these vehicles, we have a lot of technicians. They are testing the vehicles shortly before the competition. So before this challenge, they have spent a lot of time preparing and also overcoming technical difficulties. Yes, the technology university usually represents a very strong team. In 2016, they won third place. And we also very look forward to interviewing them after the challenge. Before the challenge, we have also recorded some of the work they have done in preparation for this challenge. Yeah, so you can see that our venue is very big. It's cross-field venue, different from the venues in an urban environment, which are much simpler. And there are also directions in these settings, but in our settings, we don't have access to these comforts. This kind of vehicle it's actually very challenging for this kind of vehicle to run in a battlefield. How about this Beijing autonomous vehicle, a Beijing automobile? There are a lot of sensors installed, including the laser radar on top. It resembles the human eye. And this laser radar are all produced by China because this challenge really gives a lot of importance to domestically produced and proprietary products. It has a very interesting name, this team. It's called Beijing China Zinc Team. Chip Team, sorry, Beijing brand chip team. So the radars you mentioned, when they go through the parts where signals are interfered, how will they respond? So the satellite signal interference are mainly targeted at, for example, Beidou navigation satellite systems. But here, we can send some signals so that we will know in front of the vehicles what are the obstacles lying ahead in order to inform its decision. Well, this one is really tough. It's based on the Dongfeng Mengshi chassis, and it also gives a lot of value to proprietary technologies. It's different from the Beijing automobile that we just saw. The sensors are also domestically produced for this vehicle. The chassis also has very good performance cross-field. That means when it actually climbs over very tough terrains, it will be able to adapt to these difficulties. And when some of the vehicles are in the competition, I found that maybe this unmanned vehicle will find it difficult to go fast. Is that so? When the vehicle is manned, it can go rather fast. When it's not manned, in a very good road condition, it can also go fast. But usually, in very complex terrains, it has to make judgments so that the limit is about 15 kilometers, but today we have 12 kilometers in our challenge. In Group A, there are different kinds of obstacles on the road, and some seem to offer no other way out. That's really targeted at testing whether the vehicle is intelligent enough. And they will make this judgment whether or not to take this road or that. And if sometimes they run into a dead corner, they will be able to make judgments how to get out of this deadlock. So if some vehicles fail to get out, what will we do? Yeah, we have this crawler type vehicle. For wheel type vehicle, if the obstacle is like over half a meter high, then we say, well, that it's trapped. But for crawler type vehicles, this is not that big a problem. And yesterday we saw really very deep obstacles, very deep pits. So much larger than in previous games, right? Yes, the bigger the pit, the more difficult for the vehicles. But actually, for sensing, it doesn't pose higher difficulties because it can actually know how deep the pit is. For example, you have a pit that is 1.5 meters. Then, if a vehicle falls into, if it falls into a pit or if it cannot move, we will have human interference.
对的，就是我们刚才说的人工干预情况，就是这台无人车它的自己判断的能力已经没有了，或者说受到影响了，让这台车不出事故，所以人上去干预一下，让它恢复正常的路径上。
Yeah, so in case of these problems, we're going to interfere to get it back to the right track. Yeah, so maybe our dear viewers are also thinking about what is the challenge really like. Can we go further to take a look, a closer look? And we also would like to hear more from you about the events in Group A for what purposes. So, in Group A, we have 9 events. Briefly introducing them to you. In previous games, we have operators, human operators in the vehicles, giving an order to the vehicles and controlling the vehicles in close range. But this year, we are simulating a remote control system. It means in our command center, we send the order document in a data chain to the vehicle so that the vehicle will analyze, interpret this order itself to understand what's the instruction, and then so that we can send further instruction to it. And the command side, the command center is at the back so that we will send the instruction to the vehicles in the front line. So the competition route is over 10 kilometers. What's the most difficult or most challenging event as you see it? In the 2 previous games, we didn't do satellite signal interference and smoke interference. So in case of satellite signal interference, it's like a person becomes blind and doesn't know what's going on around him. For unmanned vehicles, it has different sensing technologies installed. So in case of satellite signal interference, we expect the unmanned vehicles to depend on other channels for sensing. In case of these interferences, what kind of methods would it adopt in addition to human interference? Yeah, that is something we really focus on today. We don't know what are their strategies, and this challenge is really to find out what different teams have to offer. And if there are some good technologies coming out, we can say, well, this vehicle has done a better job. It's a relatively large venue. Yes. Actually, it's a bit confidential here, so let's just stay on the starting point. It's simpler in the starting point, and further deep inside, it becomes more and more complicated. Yeah, so we can have a close-up look at the road. You see it's very muddy, and there are potholes. And far beyond, we can see there are a lot of rocks, stones on the road, and it's very rigid road. So that means this is where the Group A competition begins. We have already a vehicle in preparation there. That's the third vehicle ready to go into this competition.
这个裁判车它是一直跟在后面。
The referee vehicle will always follow the vehicles, providing surveillance for the whole range. In order to ensure the fairness of this challenge, the referee vehicle will will also record the performance of the vehicles in front of it. And our referees and technicians are also in the referee vehicle. So for the referees, it's very important to observe the different vehicles, how they perform, and I think the technicians sitting on these vehicles are even more nervous because these are the technologies, their technologies being tested in a challenge. That's why don't interview them during the challenge. You can interview them before and after the challenge, but don't bother them during the challenge. This is the fourth vehicle for the Technology University. And you can take a closer look. In the vehicle, you can find a lot of different circuits. On top, you can have a laser radar and a camera. When it's manned, the sensor and the camera can be taken back. But now they're preparing for the challenge. When these devices are taken back, actually you cannot tell, you will not be able to tell this vehicle from a commonplace vehicle on the road. So here we see very tough roads, very muddy roads, and then in the venue we also expect different challenges, different events like for reconnaissance and other tasks. We can also simulate a target for reconnaissance to test whether these vehicles can autonomously identify these targets. And once they have identified these targets, they can perform further tasks. So compared to civilian vehicles, they have very specific and clear tasks in the battlefields. Very difficult, yes. And from the performance that we have just seen in the challenge, we have still found some problems, not as in some parts not as good as we expected, but actually compared with other countries, China already boasts very good technologies in unmanned vehicles. Before we came, actually it rained a bit, so I was thinking if it rains in the contest, will that be very difficult? Would that be very problematic? Yes, because that will create even more muddy roads. Cross-country vehicles can perform better, but if it rains, if it's a manned vehicle, it becomes very fuzzy. You cannot see clearly what's beyond you. So in terms of the performance for manned vehicles, rain presents a big challenge. But today we have a very good weather. Well, I think it's a double-edged sword because if the weather is good, we can have very smooth competition. But if the weather is bad, I guess the difficulties will be even bigger for the contest. So that presents a good opportunity for the technicians to figure out how can they adapt better to the environment. And for the referees will also get a better understanding about the relative strengths and disadvantages of different vehicles. It's like an examination. So just now you see that from the organizers' view, actually, the more difficult the challenge is, the happier they are. And that means, well, this task is really challenging for all the contestants. The setting is really difficult in a challenge. And talking about difficulty of the challenge, I think that the viewers will like to know more about whether or not there are different settings for difficulties. For example, the pit is there to test the vehicle's ability to overcome obstacles. Are there other settings? This is a very complicated, very comprehensive challenge that tests different aspects of performance. There are also specific tasks designed, target identification in the battlefield, adaptation to the environment, judgment of complicated situations. This is a very complex and comprehensive challenge. I understood that in the next few days, we're going to also have unmanned team transportation, which is even more difficult than the single vehicle performance. Well, the unmanned team transportation in terms of technology and difficulty, it's actually connected to the competition in Group A. In Group B, we have one manned vehicle leading two unmanned vehicles. So the humans are in charge of identifying the road conditions and the directions. But then there are other challenges like coordination and coordinated performance. So I guess that different groups of competition have different focuses. If there are more cars in one team, then you need better coordination, and there are different more factors of changes. If there are 10 vehicles in a team and there is only one driver, the costs will come down greatly. When performing large-scale equipment battles, transportation is a very important link. For example, large-scale weapons and facilities, unmanned team transportation will enable their smooth performance. We have found there are a lot of high-tech facilities here, and how are they transported here? Like this vehicle you see, it can drive itself here, and there are some crawler-type vehicles that can be dragged to this venue. Some of the vehicles can also be brought here by other means, so different means of transport. And some of the accessories will also be brought by the technicians. In case of problems, they will replace the old accessories with the new, right? Yes, they are able to do repair and maintenance on site. When we view the challenges in the previous 2 years, we saw a lot of bionic robots, some imitating spiders, some imitating dogs. How about in this challenge this year? Yes, we do have them this year. So in the exhibition area you just saw, you can also see these bionic robots. So let's go back to take a look. Now here we are broadcasting live to you these vehicles, and some of them are confidential, so we'll not go further. And as you can see, the road is very tough, and there are even some obstacles made, including pits of different sizes. So it really presents a lot of difficulties. And yesterday we we actually went around in a manned vehicle, but still we couldn't go into a lot of places because the road is too rigid. And now, Mr. Tao, in the exhibition area, can you tell us more about this challenge?
Okay.
This broadcast is live, so some of the images, as you can see, we're not sure whether they're confidential. But in this afternoon, when it is broadcast, we will have actually a modified version to get rid of the confidential parts. We have installed cameras in different angles in order to fully bring this challenge to you. And Mr. Tao has some other things to do, so we will not interrupt his work. This competition, starting at 9 o'clock, will last until 5:30 in the afternoon today, and then we will have a scoring session. The referee team will discuss and compare the videos and parameters during the challenge to make the final judgment. Group A's competition will last for a whole day, and tomorrow it will be Group B competition. It's also focusing on autonomous reconnaissance and transportation, mainly focusing on the performance of unmanned vehicles and whether they're able to identify targets. Currently, we are in the exhibition area of this challenge. It's also the starting point of this challenge. In the next few days, we're going to tell you more about this challenge, and we are now in this training venue in Changping. We're bringing live to you the third annual unmanned ground system challenge named Conquer Obstacle 2018. It's sponsored by Chinese PLA Army, and a total of 136 teams from 61 organizations have competed in this challenge, presenting the latest technologies. So that is today's broadcast. Thank you for viewing.